Hi everyone, it's Miss Michelle with Franklin Discovery Academy again. I'm reading one of my favorite stories. It is a very silly story. I happen to like silly stories. But this one is a tongue twister. Do you guys know what a tongue twister is? That's when you have words that rhyme and they sound the same and you say a lot in a row, and so your tongue kind of feels like it gets twisted up. Like the saying that says, she sells seashells by the seashore. If you say it so many times in a row, your tongue kind of gets all twisted up. This book has a lot of tongue twisters in it. It has some short stories. It's called The Cat on the Mat is Flat. It's by Andy Griffiths, illustrated by Terry Denton, and it has different short stories. The one I'm going to read you guys today is called Ed and Ted's dog Fred. Ed and Ted's dog Fred. There was a man whose name was Ed. Ed lived in a shed with his friend Ted. Ted had a dog whose name was Fred. Ed liked Ted, and Ted liked Ed, and Fred liked Ted, but he didn't like Ed. One morning, Fred jumped on Ed's bed. Ed said, "Fred, get off my bed!" But Fred just growled and bit Ed's head. Ed saw red, and then he said, "I'm fed up with Fred always biting my head. I'm leaving this shed." And he went to his car, which was red. He jumped in, and away he sped. Ted said, "Ed, come back to the shed!" But Ed just shook his head and fled. So Ted jumped in his car, which was also red. But it wouldn't start. The battery was dead. Ted stamped his feet, and his face went red. "Bother, bother, bother," he said. "I'll have to take the sled instead." Ted hitched up Fred to the front of the sled, which, by the way, was also red, and away from the shed sped Fred and Ted. Ted and Fred sped after Ed. Ted saw Ed's red car up ahead. "Faster, faster, Fred," said Ted. Ted and Fred were gaining on Ed, but all of a sudden Ed stopped dead. There was a roadblock and a sign that read, "Stop! Do not drive! Big cliff ahead!" Ted said, "Fred, stop the sled!" But Fred could not. On they sped. Ted and Fred smashed into Ed. Over the cliff, Ed plummeted, closely followed by Ted and Fred. They hit the water and sank like lead. Poor Ed and Ted's dog Fred. They were drowning and almost dead when they were swallowed by a whale called Ned. "Bother," said Ed. "Bother," said Ted. "Woof, woof, woof," said Ted's dog Fred as they bobbed around in the belly of Ned. Ed and Ted's dog Fred were certain they were surely dead, but the whale called Ned, who was overfed, blew Ed and Ted's dog Fred out of the hole in the top of his head. Up, up, up flew Ed and Ted. Up, up, up flew Ted's dog Fred. And then down, down, down they all did head. "Oh no," said Ted with deathly dread. "We'll hit the ground. We'll end up dead." "Fear not," said Ed to his friend Ted, stretching a handkerchief over his head. "Hang on to me, Ted. Hang on to Ted, Fred." And down to the ground they parachuted. "Thank you, Ed," said Ted. "Thanks to you, we are not dead." "Woof, woof, woof," said Ted's dog Fred as he jumped up and licked Ed's head. Ed hugged Fred. Fred hugged Ed. Ted hugged Fred. Fred hugged Ted. Ed hugged Ted. Ted hugged Ed. And they lived happily ever after in their shed. That story is so funny, and this book has a lot more just like it if you guys ever get a chance to read it. We do have some copies at the school when you eventually go back, but this is a funny book. Let me know what you guys think, or make up some stories of your own with words that rhyme like that. I would love to hear them. You're welcome to email me them. See you guys.